Are you ready to get unbothered, little teddy bear? Yes. Are you going to do a sound check? Sound check too? Kisses and a sound check? It's going to be a good day.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Rivera. I'm your host, Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, you guys, so here's what's going on. If you've noticed, I've been talking a bit on my main channel about the whole Nolan Wells situation and that whole thing. By the time you guys are watching this, you will have another video that's on my main channel that you can watch. I'm going to apologize right now. I can't be in the chat tonight because I'm literally recording this right as I'm headed out the door. And I'm not even exaggerating a little bit when I say that. I'm going to be able to beat the buzzer and get this posted the way that it's supposed to be posted, because even though, and I promise you guys, I won't make a habit of missing the live chat, but tonight I'm not going to be able to be in the live chat because a couple months back, one of my friends, a good friend of mine, Tom Harrington, who I met in Las Vegas, he's a comedian there, I don't think he's getting to do stand-up right now because he's been going through a lot of health stuff. I'm not really putting his business out there because he's very open about it. Like, he's had to have several heart surgeries, and the latest one, I think it was something that was sort of minor, but you know, when it comes to the heart, there's really nothing minor. That sounds like me being cheesy and giving romantic advice. When it comes to the heart, honey, there's nothing minor. But seriously, when it comes to the medical, you know what I'm talking about. And so, a couple months ago, he hit me up and was like, hey, I want to go see Ben Bankus when he is in town. And I met Ben in Austin, and I'm not going to act like I really know Ben like that. Could I have probably got us in for free? Probably, because I've worked that club before. He's at I don't know what it's called. It's Stand Up Live, and it's the one at Desert Ridge. And I'm more familiar with the one in downtown Phoenix because there's two here. But anyway, and so, but you know, Tom wanted to buy tickets, and so I was like, okay, cool. And so the plan was, and this was before this was the regular time for the show, 6 p.m. And so when he hit me up and was like, hey, I got us tickets to the 6 p.m. show, I was fine with that because, like I said, that was before I had this commitment. So I won't be making a habit of that. I do schedule things around this on Sunday, just so you guys know. I take it very seriously. If I have to go to dinner with my parents, they are already familiar with the schedule, so they know that if they want to go to dinner with me, it has to be 7:30 around there. Like, you know, really 7:30, because obviously I'm not going to make it out by 7 when I'm doing the live chat. But I do apologize to you guys. I hope you guys don't hold it against me. Like I said, it's not going to be a habit. Last week, Hunter had asked, like right now you'll see there's a bottle there, but there was like a teal colored bottle right there. And Hunter had asked what was in the bottle. That's just water. I carry around a half gallon pretty much at all times of water. And it's just because I really was dehydrated for a minute there, and I know that that's a part of why I ended up getting those kidney stones that I was telling you guys about not too long ago. I'd imagine they passed because I haven't had any problems, knock on wood, since then. But I also really upped my water intake because I've been good about that for a long time. But like I told you guys, like, I'm getting back in shape. But there was a minute there where I really wasn't taking care of myself well as far as my eating and stuff. I'm not a drug person. I'm not a drinker at this point in my life. There have been points when I have been a drinker, like a real drinker at points. You know, but I always kept it. No, that's a lie. I was going to say I always kept it Thursday to Sunday if I was going to drink. But when I was living in Vegas, when I was much younger, I was a real party boy. I mean, like, you know, it would be like, I'm not proud of it, but it's a long time ago, so I don't mind saying it. But it really is, like, it really was like every night of the week. And I was in a lush. Well, sometimes I would drink during the day too. You know what? Let's just say that for a minute there, I really did drink a lot. And like I said, I'm not ashamed of it, but at the same time, it's not something that I'm really proud of. But I can always speak to that part of the way things go, because like right now, I mentioned the Nolan Wells thing. And I've been talking about it, and I probably have about 2 more videos in me about Nolan Wells. I'm going to try to throw in an extra bonus fun one coming up just to break it up a little bit. But this one really weighs on my mind, and it's because I think that the white kids are being shafted right now, or they're trying to. Luckily, they're not playing into it in any way. They're playing it really smart. But it's because I don't think a lot of people are wanting to understand that sometimes when you're in party mode and you're young like that, because whether or not anybody likes it, young people are going to drink. Like I told you guys, I got my fake ID when I was 16 years old. I was in the bars regularly by the time I was 17. Like all of 16, there were moments where I'd go to the bars and stuff where I'd actually use my fake ID. But when it came to like being at the bars a lot, it was once I really got like right on the edge of 17, like 16 and a half or something, or, that's when I really started like being there more, and by 17 I was full blown at these bars. And the thing that I don't think a lot of people are really factoring in, and this is just a matter of fact when you're talking about drinking and partying, you really don't always worry about other people. Like I had points with my friends because, I've had friends that, like, I guess you could say when I was younger, sometimes I had friends that weren't the best at managing themselves. And so they would like want to hang out with me, which, okay, if you want to hang out with me, cool. But, and I don't mean to roll my eyes like that, but just, it was always weird for me because I always looked at other people as a liability. I mean, like, I hung out with friends at different points, but like when I was younger, I really didn't want to always be anybody's ride home. I like a fair amount of my friends didn't have cars, and I didn't want to always give them a ride home and have to pick them up as well. And, I was just very, even then, kind of independent. Like, there was a point where I had these 2 friends that I used to hang out with all the time that were my bar buddies. And that's where I learned that I didn't want to be like that. Because, like, when I was hanging out with them and we were supposed to be a crew, it was always so, in my opinion, what I now know to be codependent. At that time, we didn't use that term much at all, or I don't remember anybody using that term when I was younger. Like I say, I'm Gen X, and so we didn't talk like that when we were younger. But I now realize that that's what that is. So there was always this, like, we have to do this, we have to meet up, we have to, and like, it would really, at that point, kind of control my life, because if they didn't feel like going out, then I wouldn't go out. And then, one time my mom just told me, which, different people will feel different ways about my relationship with my mom when it comes to this. But my mom was very realistic in the way that she saw what I was doing, as far as me being out and stuff like that. She was very aware that I would drink, and, my mom was never the kind to buy me alcohol, anything like that. My mom doesn't drink herself, but she knew that I was out there doing what I was doing. And it was really kind of my business, is the way I think everybody saw it, well, everybody, I mean, her and my dad. It was just kind of like, yeah, we don't love it, but it's whatever, so we didn't talk about it a lot. But as far as me going out and stuff, my mom was very encouraging of that, because she wanted me to have a life, so if I wanted to go out, whatever I was going to do, whether it was going to a bar or going with friends or going to a movie or whatever it was, my mom has always been one to push me out the door. And that was since I was young. Like I told you guys, I had kind of a strict upbringing for my super young years. But even when I was, because that's part of the reason that we lived in the town that we lived in, because originally I was, not originally, you're only born once, but I was born in Phoenix. And then my mom, my dad got an opportunity in the town that we grew up in, and my mom kind of, how would you say that? Encouraged him to take it, because she would rather us have been raised in a smaller town rather than the city, so that we didn't have to deal with the things that come with living in a city, gang life and all that stuff, So when I was growing up, since we lived in that smaller community, I remember my mom would give me $5 or $10 in the summertime, and she would just be like, go to the mall, go hang out. And she would basically force me to, take my bike and go to the mall. And, I was always at the park, and there was those old school rules of, once the street lights come on, you get home, as soon as the sun goes down, you make sure you're home by the time it's dark. And so, but, so my mom's always been, my whole life has been very encouraging of me being out, So one time I was like bummed out because my friends didn't want to go out or whatever, or they were being lame, maybe late and working or whatever. And my mom was just like, she told me in so many words, like, if you wait on other people, you're never going to do anything in your life, because you're always going to be waiting on other people. So if you want to do something, you need to just do it. If you want to go out, then you go out. Don't worry about your friends. If they want, they can catch up with you. If they're around and you want to pick them up, you can do that. But you worry about you. So if you want to go out, you go out. And so that's, that, like, because I'm very good at listening to my mom. Ever since I was young, I have been, I had my rebellious moments where I didn't listen to her at all. But as far as when my mom speaks wisdom to me, I've always been good at listening to her, because the truth is, she's never steered me wrong. Even when it came to doing stand-up, like, a lot of people are like, well, that must have been hard for your parents, or, I'm sure your family wasn't supportive of that. Actually, my family is the opposite of a lot of people's experience, where, some people saw it as, some parents see it as a child throwing their life away because now they're going to be a starving artist and whatever else. And my family was not like that at all. My parents were like, yeah, we're going to be your fans. We're here. We're here for you. We're never going to go to shows because they just don't go out. I think I've told you guys that before. My parents aren't like people that go out like that, so but that even turned out to be a blessing, because one time when I was first starting out, I asked my dad, are you and mom ever going to come out to a show? And my dad said, we'll wait to see you on TV. And I said, done. And that's how I ended up getting on TV. And that's not an exaggeration at all. We had that conversation, and then shortly afterwards, I was like, okay, well then let me hurry up and get on TV. And I made that happen. I made that happen a couple of times during that little period, and so they got to see me, and I was happy with that. But they've always been very encouraging of me. And so, what I was getting at, though, is that once I really got on that streak of just being my own thing and not worrying about the others or anybody else, it really did become where, I'd have friends that wanted to come out with me, and I'd be like, sure, okay, I'll meet you there. Or if I pick them up, I pick them up. But then we'd get there, and I remember a few of them would be like, can you make sure I don't do anything stupid? Watch me. And I'd be like, I don't even want to watch what I'm going to do tonight. So I can guarantee you I'm not going to watch you. You monitor yourself. If you know that you can only have so many drinks and then things get carried away, then only have that many drinks. But I am going to be in my own world doing my own thing. I have had times, and this is no exaggeration, where I have literally told my friends, I'm going to go self-destruct now. I will see you guys later. And they know that means I am going to be on one. And so my friends know to leave me alone. Like I tell you guys about my friend Thomasina. Thomasina remembers when I was a real drunk. Not a real drunk, but really partying and super fun, I got in a lot of trouble. That's the thing. Like, me and Thomasina have known each other for apparently 25 years now. And so he remembers when I was really, like, what you could call literally messy. I'd get drunk. Like, there were times where I would ask Thomasina and his partner at the time to drop me off at some sketchy places, and they would do it, so because I asked them, it wasn't, and they knew that whether I'm drunk or sober, I'm still me. So if I ask you to do something and you can do it as my friends, then just do it and don't question me. And I don't mean that in a way like I was over them, like they're superior, not like that. We're friends. And so if, let me give you guys another example. I was at Gay Pride with a friend, and it was, it was like 11 a.m., maybe noon, because the parade, I think, had just ended. So maybe just after noon. And my friend was on Grindr while we were at the parade. And then all of a sudden this guy walks by, and my friend is like, hey. And the guy's like, hey. And then they start having this chat, and it turns out that they had just been chatting on Grindr. So I guess the guy had asked my friend for a landmark, and my friend was like, we're near the Circle K. I'd imagine that's what they said, because we were right near the Circle K. I know, because right after I went to go buy cigarettes at the Circle K. But what I'm getting at is, it's like noon, and then this guy comes up, starts talking to my friend. My friend is like, I'm gonna go hang out with this guy for a little while. Like the guy walks away a little bit to let him have the conversation with me, and he was like, I'm gonna go hang out with this guy for a little while. And I was like, yeah, cool. And so, but it's so when people are trying to pull the like, we came together, we're leaving together type of thing, I can't relate. And I don't know a lot of people, at least in my life at this point, that really do think that way. Like, if we're in a dangerous situation, then yeah. But, with the Nolan Wells situation, because obviously that's what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm, like, trying to let you guys know, like, the frame of reference that I have for all of this kind of stuff, is I've just not ever lived that way. Like, there have been times where, I've been hanging out with people in really sketchy situations where it was like, maybe like gangbanger type activity or stuff like that. Then I'll stay close to my friends, or let my friends stay close to me, because I don't worry about those things, partly because of the way that I look, like, one of the things with the way that I look that's a real blessing is that if I go to a place that's like, gangbanger type, they assume that I'm somehow in that life. But if I don't try to, like, what you notice about like gangbangers, or what I've noticed, is that if I don't try to flex on them in any way, or in any way give them like a vibe like I'm trying to be hard, then we're not going to have problems. And so I don't worry about that stuff for myself. So when I say I allow my friends to be close to me, that's what I do in those kinds of situations. Like, I will, in a sense, make sure nobody messes with my friends, because we're there together. But at the same time, I'm not worried about me. So it's like, you can leave or do whatever you want. If I'm choosing to hang out here, I'm going to be fine, and I know that. But outside of that, I'm not worried about anybody. If we just go out to a club or whatever, if I'm hanging out with girls, then I'll keep an eye on them because I know that women have different factors. So when I say the stuff that I'm saying, I'm talking about hanging out with other men, you know, whether that's gay or straight. I'm just talking about hanging out with other men. I just don't have that where I feel like they're my responsibility. Now, if somebody at this point in my life, because I don't drink, if I notice a friend is too drunk, I'll try my best to, you know, get them to where they need to be or safe situations. But again, if my friend is like, this is what I want to do and I want to be left alone or I want to just stay here, I'm not going to force them to do anything. I'm not going to force them to leave with me or make those decisions for them. And maybe some people would say that that makes me a bad friend, but I'm the complete opposite. Because like I told you guys, when I'd be drinking and doing my stuff, if I said leave me somewhere, then leave me there. I don't need your help. I don't need you deciding that you're going to take care of me or whatever. But anyway, to get back to the gay pride story, my friend ended up leaving for a little while. Him and that guy hooked up or did whatever they did. And then like maybe an hour and a half later, my friend hit me up and I had like, what I did was I went and bought cigarettes at the Circle K. Then I went to the actual Pride Festival, the grounds where they were having the Pride Festival. And then my friend texted me and was like, where are you at? And I was like, told him where I was at on the Pride grounds. And then they came to hang out with me. And then it was great and it was fun. But like for that while that I was alone, I didn't feel abandoned. And I also didn't feel like I had like thrown my friend to the wolves, you know? And so, and I know that these are younger people, but from what I've seen, Nolan was 18 and the friends were a little bit younger. So I would imagine like 17. He's the older one. So if anybody should be able to take care of themselves, if anybody should be in charge of themselves, I would think that it should be the older person. And so I don't like get why they're trying so hard to crucify these young guys. Now, if we end up getting actual evidence that there was some foul play, which that's the other thing. I'm fine with them doing the independent investigation because, yeah, maybe you will find something or whatever. Clearly, the police aren't doing the best job, or the sheriff in Mississippi isn't doing the best job. He hadn't even interviewed Javon, which is Nolan's best friend and one of the last people to see Nolan. So I can see, you know, them wanting an independent investigation. I don't like who they've chosen to do it. But, you know, all of this stuff I'll end up talking about more on the other videos. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more of like some of the stuff that I won't necessarily have time to always say in these videos. But that's the way I come at a lot of this stuff, is more from like the perspective of nobody's in charge of taking care of anybody else. That's just not the way it works when you are especially an adult male. That's not the way guys roll. You know, again, like I said, if it's a pack of women, when women say that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that you guys would all want to make sure that you stay together, and there is strength in numbers, and sometimes guys do get creepy and, you know, that kind of stuff with women. So it's, you know, I get it 100%. So, but I think that that's something a lot of the, you know, the women that are like talking about this will come at it from that perspective. And it's like, you're expecting that guys are going to conduct themselves in the same way that women do. And that's just not realistic. That's not the way that it works. And, you know, like I've had people online telling me the last couple of days, you know, on Facebook, just like, well, you're clearly a bad friend. Okay, well then I'm a bad friend. I'm not going to argue that. If you think that I'm a bad friend because I don't helicopter over my friends and that's just not the way that I'm gonna live, no matter what you say, that's just what it is. I don't care. Just like with racism, I posted on Facebook today that, it's come to my attention, or I've noticed that me and a lot of people on that platform don't have the same definition of racism. And they're just going to have to get used to that, because I'm not going to change. I mean, people try to put that, they try to brand me with the "you're racist." But it's like, what do I really do that's racist? I expect the same from every person, especially at this point in my life, and especially with where we are as a society. I don't care what color you are, but I need you to act like an adult. I need you, if you're going to be in my world, you can do whatever you want if you don't intersect with where I'm at. Fine, do whatever I encourage it. I love that for you. Please do whatever you want and whatever you need to do, 100%. But if you're going to be around me or places that I'm at, I need you to not be ghetto, because I'm not going to ghetto places. So, and when I am in ghetto places, like I told you guys a second ago, I blend, I chill, I do what needs to get done. And that's another thing that I've noticed a lot of people don't really have a lot. Like, sometimes I feel like I should teach a class, because like you see guys sometimes in public settings kind of get aggressive with each other, or have like these awkward moments where it can go either way, and you're sort of like, is this going to turn into a fight, or what's going on? But guys don't realize how quickly you can diffuse any kind of aggression from other men. Like, one thing that happens when you look like me is that other guys that, look like me, or nobody looks like me, but like the tattoos, piercings, or even just like what you can tell are gangbangers, because that's what I look like to the outside world, and I'm very aware of that. Like, a lot of people do have that idea that I'm some sort of gangbanger. Tattoos on the face, I know, is what does it, and I accept that. I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, why do people feel this way, or why do people think this? I don't really care. Like, it's not like a negative to me, but at the same time, I'm not going to pretend that it's not a thing. Like, that's how a lot of people get in trouble, or a lot of people really have hostile relationships with the rest of the world, because they refuse to accept the reality of what it is, either the choices that they've made for themselves have led them to, or the way that that's made the world look at them, or just by nature of whatever they are. Like, if you're a big dude and you look menacing, even if you're a teddy bear on the inside, you've got to remember that the rest of the world sees you as this big dude. And so if you want to, figure out a way to diffuse that, then learn to navigate that, But a big part of helping you out would be, first of all, for you to fully acknowledge and be aware of what it is you are, even if other people don't know what it is you are on the inside, if that makes sense. So with me, obviously I'm a gay man, but not everybody gets that just from seeing me. Once I talk, I feel like it's a little more obvious, depending on which voice I use, because that's the other thing, like I work with what I have to work with in the situation that I'm in. So like, if I'm in a place where I know that, one, I'm not trying to get to know any of these people on any kind of deeper level, so they don't need to know the real me. It's not important. I'm not going to come out to these people in any way. But I know that there's a chance that they might be hostile towards it, or I know that it's not going to work to my advantage in any way and might actually work against me, then I'll drop a couple octaves in my voice so that I don't flame out for these people, because why should I put myself in that situation? I'm not trying to prove any kind of point. But what I was getting at is when you're like this, and so other people have this idea of you, like I notice it at least 4 or 5 times a day where a guy will look at me sort of like in an aggressive way, or it's like a momentary eye contact type of thing where it's sort of like they feel challenged once our eyes meet, and it's just a habit for me to make eye contact with almost everybody. It's partly a defense mechanism that I learned from watching Oprah a long time ago. It's so gay, you know what I mean? But it's what it is. It was a special episode where they were talking about like how you can avoid kind of being a victim of crime, and it was when I was super, super young, and it just stuck with me forever. But I remember there was a guy, an expert, that was talking about that, and he was saying that making eye contact with people is a very good way to lower the odds of you being victimized, because when you make eye contact with people, it sort of sends like a subconscious message to them that you could have just clocked everything about them. You could have just, like, you fully acknowledged them, and you could have noticed, like, their height, their weight, like, and it, I guess, subconsciously plays on that for people that, oh, this person has actually seen me, as opposed to a person that's like looking down all the time and not really noticing the world around them. That kind of makes them look like an easy mark, and so you're just letting people know that you're more aware. Well, as a consequence of that, if you're a guy like me and you look at another guy and you guys hit the eye contact, and then he gets this trigger, which I'll see literally happen sometimes, where they'll like, look at me sort of like, is this guy testing me right now? But if I just give him a quick, like, what's up type of thing, either go head up or head down, you know what I mean? Like a quick, either way, just let them know, hello, I'm not trying to do anything. And I don't say any of that, there's no verbal that comes out. It's just a quick flip of the head upwards or downwards. And then right away, that diffuses them. A lot of times that's what they'll do right back, is like as soon as I give them the what's up, they give me the what's up, it's all good. Sometimes they'll smile, it just breaks them right away. In one way or another, it breaks them where they're like, all right, this guy's cool. He's not trying to test me. He's not trying to, alpha on me or anything like that. But again, these are things that you have to be aware of. Like, the other thing, like I mentioned with the gay thing, there's some people that would be like, well, if you're proud to be gay, why wouldn't you? Like, what? Why wouldn't I what? Why wouldn't I put myself in dangerous situations to let people that don't have any use for that information know that I'm gay? To prove what point? Like, what am I trying to do? I already get to be me at all times. If I ever want to do that, because, I've also talked about that. I guess that's also a part of it, is that I've tested the world in every way possible. You think I haven't ever showed up to like a gangbanger type situation in a crop top? Or like one time we went to a Mexican bar and I was wearing chaps. And it was, I remember we were a little worried that night. This was when I was super, super young, like maybe 19. And we had been at the gay bars, and then afterwards some of the trans girls, because that was a crazy time. Like, in my life, that was a crazy time, because the trans girls I knew at that time had this, because one thing that's always bothered me, or used to always bother me, it happens a lot less now, but was the game that straight men and trans women, at the time we would just say transsexuals, but would play with each other. Because there was this thing where because like the guys would afterwards a lot of times be like, oh, I thought she was a chick, or that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, you didn't. You did not. She's way too big to be a girl. And we all know that. She's the size of a man. And, yeah, she may have a very beautiful face. And, but these weren't my friends that were, because like I told you guys, once I moved to Vegas, here in Phoenix when I was coming up, it was like a mixed bag, There were some friends that were, not at all into that, like, fooling straight guys, that kind of thing. And then there were some friends that were, but I noticed that, like, if we went to the Mexican bars, the Mexican guys, and I don't know how this is going to come out, but it's just true. So it's going to come out as the truth is what it's going to come out as. And people may not like it, but it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. But, like, they used to play this game. The Mexican guys would act like they didn't know. And then they'd hook up with these trans girls and whatever, And so sometimes my friends would invite me to go with them to places because everybody knew that I didn't care about going anywhere. I would go with them, especially those friends, because those, again, are those friends that, like, they'll break away, they'll take off or whatever. And so I remember one time I was a little worried that somebody was going to try to throw like a bottle, because I was wearing these like mesh little shorties with thong under. T-back was technically what it was, a leather one. And then, but like I said, I had the mesh shorties over them, so it wasn't necessarily obscene. And again, this wasn't like, in any kind of circumstance where there would be children or anybody that was not in one way or another in a club or a bar mode. It was a very adult type situation. And so, yeah, that's what I had been wearing. And so I had chaps on, and it was a cute little outfit, but it was very, very gay. And I don't remember if I was just wearing a wife beater that night, or sometimes I would wear the crop wife beater back in those days. And the sports bra, some of us would joke and say. But, yeah, so, that was like where you could say, like, a dangerous situation to put yourself in. And I did that a lot when I was younger like that. And so I, like, at this point in my life, I don't feel like I have anything to prove in that way. And I don't know why I ever did, because clearly that was a part of it, and maybe it was because people were more homophobic back in those days, because there was plenty of homophobia. Like, in my life, I've experienced plenty of homophobia. I just don't hold on to it, and I look at it more as the positive for, like, where the world has made it to, just in my lifetime, I almost said short lifetime, but, if you look at it in the context of, the strides that have been made when it comes to LGBT, when it comes to race, when it comes to all of these things, if you look at it that way, it has been a lot that's happened in a short amount of time. And people really have updated their thinking, and people really have changed. And, and when I say, like, I dealt with a lot of homophobia when I was younger, it wasn't like this constant weight on me, and I don't feel like I was particularly traumatized by it. It just was what it was. But, so I felt like my nose is itching right now. Sorry. But, so I felt like at that time that I did have to assert myself more. And then also there was the part of me that was, dealing with the fact that you grew up with a fair amount of shame about that kind of stuff, about even being gay. And so that too made you want to assert yourself and, just really kind of let the world know, I am what I am type of thinking, and everybody can deal with it, like you're just going to have to deal with it. We're queer. We're here. Get used to it. I never identified as queer, but I definitely was making people get used to it. And so, so at this point in my life, my point is I just don't feel a need in any way at all to really flex on people. And so I don't have the problems that some people would think that I should have, or the problems that I see some people having. Because, sometimes with people, I'm just sort of like, okay, well, I don't know why you even felt like you had to really assert that. Like that's one of the problems that I have with a lot of modern trans people is like you'll see people that are completely passable, because there've always been people that have been on the passable side. Like when I mentioned, that I had those friends where it's sort of like you looked at them and you were like, you could tell that they were definitely male, but these guys would hook up with them anyway. But when it came to, my friends that are like super pretty and stuff like that, I'm yawning a lot to have a full night ahead of me. And it's only 1:44 in the afternoon. But when you see these people that are, completely forgot what I was saying. I wish I was having a live chat right now so you guys could remind me of what I was. Oh, so there are people that are passable enough that, like nobody would know, unless somebody might suspect, but nobody would know. It could just be, a woman that has like a particular masculine feature, like a penis, just playing. But a particular masculine feature, like maybe their hands are a little big or whatever, which can easily be dismissed because there are women that have big hands, Like, who's a good example of that, which doesn't have big hands. I'm not saying that, but just like somebody that's very passable is Blair White. Like I've been out in public with Blair, and Blair is one of those people that, because that's part of her internet thing, she's, open about it that way or whatever. But if you're just hanging out with Blair during the day or whatever, everybody that sees her is just going to assume she's a female and not worry about it. And I say that as a person that's like really like, we've hung out. I've seen her in the day, been up on her, so I know what it is, what she looks like, and so, but her, it's like a person like her, imagine that they go to a place and just decide to announce that they're trans just to prove what point. And that's what I'm getting at with a lot of these people that you see getting into it online. And it's sort of like, okay, well, why are you outing yourself basically to stand up for people that aren't trying at all to be what you are? Because that's the other thing that like a lot of people, it's like if you're not, here's a good way I'll put it. For me personally, I am not a person that's afraid to stand up for somebody if I see somebody being bullied in a public place. If there's some sort of thing going on and this is something that I've proven in my life enough, where I will step in and just be like, don't do that. And I'm nice about it, and I do let people know, like, no. Leave them alone, please. They're not doing anything to you. They're not bothering you. Just leave them alone. But for me, it's like a thing of, if I were to see another gay man that were just getting harassed just for the way that he was dressed, or, being openly flamboyant or whatever like that, and somebody decided to like bully them in some way, or just out of nowhere start to harass them in some way, I would definitely step in and just be like, let's not do that. We're all adults here, and like I said, I'm good at diffusing things like that because I don't come at people in a way where it's like, if you don't leave him alone, I'm going to kick your ass. No, that's not the way you do anything, like just diffuse the situation. Literally, you don't make it worse, and so I would help somebody like that. But if the person is trying to be disrespectful, is saying things that they know are suggestive and, like literally trying to goad people, like being the like try me type. If somebody approaches you about that or says something to you about that, you're on your own. I'm not throwing myself in there and risking somebody possibly attacking me because you don't know how to conduct yourself in public. That's where I bow out of it completely. You want to run up against the world that way, you run up against the world that way. But, and then the same with trans people. You'll see these trans people, and it's like, if you're in a situation where it really doesn't matter, then why would you announce you're trans just to try people? Just to be like, deal with it. Okay, well then you deal with it. You deal with your consequence of wanting to be that person. Because when I was that person, like I told you guys, I would dress in ways and go places that I knew that I shouldn't have been, or that I knew that shouldn't have been is a strong way of putting that, because I belong anywhere anybody else belongs. And that's part of what I was proving to myself. Not like I thought I was. That's the thing I think that I've noticed the most, or that, that I realized about that point in my life or whatever, is that I thought I was proving these things to the world, but really I was just trying to prove them to myself, I thought I was showing the world how open I could be and how comfortable I was with myself, and really it was me finding my way to being comfortable with myself and having to, like kind of force myself to just be like, just you accept it, where I thought I was showing the world that they were going to accept it. It really was that I needed to learn to accept it, and they were just pawns in my game. Just like, but it's sort of true. It was just like me learning to assert myself in that way, But my point is, when I was going through that myself, I wasn't looking for the rest of the world to back me up. I just wasn't. It wasn't at all on my mind that way, that, like I need people are going to stand up for me. People are going to put themselves out there for me. Nah, that wasn't at all what I was thinking. I knew that, if I wanted to be out there like that, then I needed to deal with my consequences as a big boy if I was gonna, be presenting myself as a big boy. And so, but yeah, like I said, like now, I don't feel any of that, but it's just like, why do I want to really be butting up against the world like that, and like some people would say that my social media presence does that, and I know that some people think of it that way. I personally don't, because a lot of these people don't understand that I am, whether anybody looks at me as that or not, a content creator. That's what I do, so sometimes I'll put ideas on social media to get reactions so I can basically use them as a focus group and see what people are saying as far as that goes. And sometimes it really is like me putting ideas out there so that the people that are attracted to that thinking will pay attention to me. Because I really feel like voices like mine right now are necessary, because for so long, so many people have been suppressed as far as not being able to express that they notice that certain parts of society just aren't working with us. And I do feel like we as a collective, even though not everybody gets this from things I say, but I do feel like we as a collective, as a society, are all leveling up. And some people want to drag us down because they don't want to level up, or because they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they're capable of leveling up. So what they try to do is down people like me or make people like me shut up, because the louder I get and the more that I just express these thoughts that I have, the less places they have to hide. Because, you know, as I do it more, that emboldens other people to do it more. And if people have the right intentions, I don't think there's anything wrong with what we're doing. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with my thinking when I say that I feel like black people are just as capable of the rest of us at being productive members of society. And I know that because I've seen so many black people do it in my life. So when ghetto black people get mad at me because I think that they're capable of better too, which they might be right, they might not be. So get out of everybody's way. Don't get mad at us because we point out that you're ripping up a Circle K, or that you're breaking things with a bat at a Walmart, or that you're gangbanging and in some cases putting all of us in dangerous situations that we don't want to be in. And I used black in that example because that's a lot of who gets mad at me because like certain black people do think that if you're not black, you're not supposed to at all be critical of the black community. And I don't think it occurs to them that I don't really think of them as parts of the black community at that point. To me, they're just a person that's misbehaving and needs to get it in check. And then they turn that into, well, you shouldn't speak on black people. And then I'm like, well, if we're on that subject, let's do it. I mean, like, you're not going to tell me what I can and can't talk about. But those people don't pay attention when I've been doing it with the LGBTQ community. I've been very clear about a lot of them not wanting to blend with society. I talked about it at length, did a lot of videos on it when it came to Latinos that come here from other countries, illegal immigrants, you know, that don't want to assimilate, don't want to blend. Okay, then go back home, because I don't want this to turn into Mexico or Guatemala or wherever it is you're from. I don't want that to be this. This is its own thing. Where if I moved to Mexico, I would assimilate to Mexican culture. I wouldn't try to turn them into the United States. If I wanted to be in the United States, I could have just stayed in the United States. Guess what? I love the United States. This is where I want to be. This is where I was born. This is where I was raised. I've traveled. I don't want to live anywhere else. I can visit somewhere else for maybe a couple weeks at the most. But really, I prefer not be anywhere. Sorry, puppy, I didn't mean to scare you. I prefer to be only in the United States at this point. But, you know, I can visit other places and be fine and have a good time and enjoy it. And it is what it is. But, you know, I've been very critical of, then that would be my people. That's the way they would put it, you know, or the people that don't like me, because that's what they're like, you know. It's all very basic with a lot of the people that get mad at me, you know. It's like, you're a racist, and it's like, okay, I didn't say anything racist. Like, you know, somebody called me racist because I put that post up where I said, because I know not everybody follows me on Facebook, and I don't mind if you guys don't, because at this point, like, even though Facebook is, I'm monetized on Facebook, but it's not enough money for me to really look at it as money. You know what I mean? It's just like, whatever, cool, it's monetized. But I look at my Facebook more as a personal thing, even though it runs as a part of the business, but I look at it more as a personal thing because the only reason that I even keep Facebook at this point is because I've had friends on there for years and years and years now that know me through comedy, but I really do see them as friends because we've been friends on Facebook for so long. I've seen, their families grow. I've seen their children go from being children to now being adults. I've seen some of them, get married, get divorced, sometimes get married and divorced, because I've had Facebook forever now, since it first came out in 2008, I think it was. So that's a good chunk of time, and so I look at it as a good way of keeping up with those people. And yeah, I'll put my opinions out there, and yeah, I'll let people know if I'm going to be doing a show or anything like that. I'll use it in that way. But as far as, like me looking at it as like an actual professional type situation, not so much. Like I said, I will use it. It's great for like focus group type stuff, like just trying to like get a consensus of where people are. And there's some ideas that I fully admit, because I will continue to evolve for the rest of my life. I don't ever plan to think that I know everything, and I don't ever plan to think that I'm done learning. That's not where I'm at in my life. But what I notice and what I do really strongly believe in, and I know is not going to change, is that we all need to be at least, or the majority of us need to be on the same page as far as leveling up, as far as doing better in life, as far as wanting safe streets, as far as just being able to like literally trust each other. And I know that it's never going to be 100% of society, but if we can get it closer to the overwhelming majority, because it's already at a majority, or else there'd be bedlam in the streets, and there would be a lot more crime. But it really has, or had for a while there, started to go the other way, where it was getting like kind of like, is everybody just being ghetto now? But like that just seemed to be like a phase for a couple of years there, from maybe like 2013 to 2020. Maybe even 2015. Yeah, 2015 was when it started getting kind of stupid. But 2015 till probably just maybe 2 years ago. Yeah. Maybe 2024. But for a minute there, it was kind of like, everything just seemed like it was getting more ratchet. That's the most appropriate term for that time frame. So I do feel like, those are things that I want to encourage, and I want to use my voice to hopefully help guide at least the part of society that pays attention to me towards, or if not guide them towards that, and they already think that way, which a lot of them do, a lot of you guys do, then at least let them know that there's somebody that's got a platform that is speaking to what maybe they feel like, needs to be said as far as that stuff goes. And then as it becomes more politically correct, and maybe I don't have to be as firm or maybe inflammatory in the way that I say things, because that's a part of it too, like you need to snap these people out of it, when it comes to like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And you're not calling me racist isn't going to make it stop. It's not going to make it so I don't point out your bad behavior. That's not the way this is going to work. Because that's a lot of what it is. That's why they call you racist, is because that was the word where it would get like, for several years there, people would say racist and everybody would go, I guess I shouldn't say that. And it's like, nobody would stop to think, I'm not being racist. Like the person saying it, I'm not talking about myself right now. I very well maybe. Not really, but you know, like from the things people, the idea people get of me. I don't have a problem with that either. You know, if people think what they think what they think, and stay unbothered.